And away we go. It is the BCJ Podcast Afternoon Edition, brought to you by our good friends at the Holy Grail. Make sure if you are downtown, if you're down by the bank, stop in to the Holy Grail, get yourself a drink, get yourself some food, maybe some Reuben wontons. Always a favorite of Kelly. So going to a Reds game, whatever it is, make sure you're stopping by the Holy Grail and supporting our longtime partners down on the banks. All right, let's get this show on the road. Special guest today. I know he's been busy. It's recruiting season. All the TBT guys are coming into town. There's a lot going on campus, so greatly appreciate him taking the time to chat with us for a little bit this afternoon. Welcome in the head coach of the Cincinnati Bearcats men's basketball program, Wes Miller. Hi, Coach. How are you?
Hey, how you doing, Chad? David, good to see you guys.
Same here.
We're doing great. Are you getting any sleep this July?
Well,
No.
Yeah. Does that answer the question? No, we're sleeping when we can. I'm not complaining. It's that time in the summer for us when you just have so much stuff going on. You just kind of hunker down, bat the hatches down, and go as hard as you can, knowing that in the next couple of weeks things will slow down and we can catch our break in early August.
How has summer workouts? I'm sure we'll get into each individual guy here as we get going, but what's the overall feel on summer workouts? How do you think your second team at Cincinnati here is coming together so far?
Yeah, so far so good. I think we're 5 weeks into our summer program. We get 8 weeks with them in the summertime per NCAA rules. You know how it is. I think there's some things that I really like. I think the roster, really came together nicely. It just kind of makes more sense in how the pieces fit together than we felt a year ago. The returning guys is kind of, how I think about this first. It's really nice to have a nucleus of guys that have a connection, not just with each other, but with us as a staff before we start, because last year you're starting complete from scratch when you start training in early June. Like we're coming off of a season together. We've failed together a little bit. We've come up short together. So there's a certain type of connection you have when you've been through some adversity together. Those returning guys have had a great off season. They started their off season a couple weeks after we lost to Houston in the conference tournament. So individually, I'm pleased with the things they've done, and I'm pleased with what they've done collectively. And having those guys during this summer program it's just been nice to have that continuity. And again, it's not just continuity on the roster; it's continuity among the guys that played the significant minutes for us. So it's nice to return all that experience.
Dave?
So this being your, second true off season, how have things been different? How have you kind of altered, changed, edited your process, and where do you think things are at this point? Are they on schedule, ahead of schedule from where you kind of envisioned them maybe 3 months ago, 6 months ago, however you kind of look at things in that regard?
Well, I'm going to correct you a little bit, Dave. I wouldn't even call this my second off season. I don't know what last summer was.
That's true.
So this feels like my first off season. I got here late April, and it felt like you were just trying to catch up. From the time I got here till the ball went up in November. This has felt like a real off season. And you retain guys from the previous team. You have some things that you want to accomplish together as a group and some goals of why we're coming back and some purpose. And then you add to that group in the transfer portal with the guys that we recruited. So it does feel like the first real off season, in terms of, gauging where are we, this probably isn't the time of the year that I sit there and go, okay, did we hit this mark? I do a lot of reflecting, and we certainly have goals year to year, and I guess there's different points in college basketball, guys. Y'all know this. There's the postseason, like spring time. You have your training session then, and the guys get a little break in May. You have your summer 8 weeks. Then you have your fall preseason, in, late August and September. And then you have your preseason practice late September through October, and then you start playing games. And I think at the end of each of those segments, you really try to sit back as a coach and go, okay, where are we? We had our goals of what we wanted to accomplish during that segment. Where are we? And you evaluate it. We're in the middle of that summer thing now. So for me to say, I don't know where we are. I can tell you where my mindset is, Dave, and that's on like getting better today. Like that's it. Like I just want us to get better and maximize what we can do as a team, as a program, as a staff, as individuals right now today. And if we can obsess with that mindset right now today and then wake up and do it again tomorrow, and then we can do that for the next 2.5, 3 weeks, now we can look back after we completed that summer session and go, okay, where are we at? So I'm not totally dodging your question. I like the way they're working at it. I like the way the teams come together. We certainly have a lot more offensive firepower, across the board. And that's not just the guys we added. It's guys that returned that have gotten better. And then we added some guys that can give us some different dimensions. So there's some things that I really like, but it's July. We got a long way to go, and we got to kind of sustain that approach that we've had here the first 4 or 5 weeks.
You mentioned that take us as much as you can into when you say getting better today, what is like 1 or 2 things that is super important to you right now in July that you're emphasizing getting better at?
Well, the first thing is just the approach and the mindset, of the individual. So like coming in here every single day, walking through this building, to take care of the responsibility that's in front of you. And, I always say like a beautiful thing about being a student athlete in college that's different about where we are in life. We're beyond that is they only have 2 real responsibilities. And that is whatever they have academically and whatever they have in terms of their athletic training. So whatever they have today, I want them to have a mindset to come in and just crush it, just destroy it. So that's a session with Coach Rayfeld in our strength conditioning program. If that's a class or an academic session, here on campus or in the Lindler Center. And then if it's practice or their extra shooting that they're doing on the side with our graduate assistants, like whatever that is, it's a mindset that we're going to attack it and we're going to maximize what we can get out of each one of those things today. Like that's the mindset, the mentality, the foundation that we're trying to build for how we work. And I want to be obsessed about that. Like I don't want to have a bad day. I don't want to have a bad weight session. I don't want to have a bad practice. I don't want to miss an extra shooting session. Like I want us to maximize each of those things. And I think if we can just focus on those little details, again, you can look up after 8 weeks and go, okay, we might've done something. So again, that might not be like the fun answer for the podcast guys, but that is really how we're trying to approach it.
When you got the job, you asked around on what you should do in terms of your strength and conditioning coach. You just mentioned Mike Rayfeld. You were told by a lot of people that Mike Rayfeld was the best in the business. Now you're getting that full first off season, getting to see Mike and how he handles things. What's been your overall assessment of your new right-hand man, essentially?
Well, I'll give you an example. Sage Talentino comes in, 7-footer, skilled, great young man. I think he's going to be a good player here, and he's really worked hard in the time he's been here. But in a couple months of working with Mike Rayfeld, he's gained almost 30 pounds. And he has a lean frame. He's never trained like this. And one of the biggest things that we told, Mike with Sage coming through the doors, we got to get him where he can physically handle the rigors of college basketball every single day. He's going to have to put mass on. He's going to have to do that and still be able to move. And the guy's already almost gained 30 pounds. We're in July. That's just one example of what Mike Rayfeld brings, right? And I say that, and Sage is still moving well, still getting off the floor well, still running well, and he's handling our summer practices better than I think we as a staff thought he would at this point. And I give Sage credit first because he's doing the work, but then you give Mike credit because Mike knows how to point those kids in the right direction and get the most out of them. He's phenomenal, Chad. I would say I'd put him up against any strength conditioning coach or performance coach in all of basketball, not just college basketball. I'll put him against anybody. Now, let's not let this thing go viral because I don't want everybody in the world coming after him. But he's phenomenal. It's not just that he understands how to train, and I do. I think there's probably other guys out there that really know how to train, and he does. He knows the right things to do to get results. It's also that he understands how to coach and how to relate and how to maximize what those guys are doing. I say this about him all the time in recruiting. He's not just a guy you show up and you do your workout. He's a guy that's with you every hour of your day. He's involved in their life because he's also in charge of the way that they eat, the way that they recover, the way that they sleep, along with Bob Mangine, our trainer. And those two guys, like, they live it just like we're living it as coaches. And so the value of that's greater than anything you can judge just by going and watching a strength conditioning workout. So I've been really, really pleased with Mike and with Bob.
I don't know if I told you this. Danny Hurley found me in April, and he came up and he said, "You told Wes how good he was, didn't you?" I'm sorry, Danny. he was not happy still with losing Mike.
And you did tell me that. And Chad, you've told me a lot of stuff, and most of it's not true, but that part has been true. No, I'm just kidding. But you were dead on about Mike Rayfield, as were a lot of people. And I'll give Mick Cronin a lot of credit as well, because he was adamant about the type of coach Mike was for him, and that moved me a lot when he told me that.
All right, let's get into you got one more before we get into player stuff, Dave?
It's kind of a player one, but I was just going to say, like, we put the roster together with several new additions. When you were formulating that plan in the offseason, obviously you want best basketball players you can get, but were there specific characteristics or specific traits you were looking for that you felt needed to be added to the returning players to kind of make the whole team a better product as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I think
offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly, especially in the spring, you're doing that in your recruiting class in the fall, right? You're trying to add pieces that make sense. Like it's like, constructing a roster is like putting a puzzle together. The pieces have to fit together. So, we knew right away when we got here, we need length, and athleticism and positional versatility and positional size on the perimeter. You could look at our team, walking through the hallway and probably figure that out. And so you look at that, and that's why you add Dan Skillings and Josh Reid. I mean, that's what they bring. And then you want to make sure that everybody you add fits your values and fits your culture and the style that you're going to play. So, I mean, hopefully that's any kid you bring into your program. But we tried to address that right away. And then we need front court depth because, you're going to graduate Hayden Koval and Abdul Adu. So, there's Sage, right? So you see us doing that in the fall. It's not rocket science. I mean, there really is a process to it. And then I think even more so now in college basketball in the spring, you know exactly kind of some things that you have to add, and you're going to go out and attack some of those things, right? And so one thing that we felt with the team that we had in place when we went to recruit in the transfer portal, we needed to add some ball handling, and there's Rob Fennessy, and some steady play at point guard. You felt like you needed to add some scoring, and somebody you could run action to, and it was a big threat to score. And there's where Landers Nolly comes into play, right? As an elite offensive weapon who also has that positional size and versatility on the perimeter. And then you needed to continue to add front court depth and somebody that could step in and play right away. And there's Kalua Zekpe. So, I mean, yeah, that is kind of in a simple way, the step-by-step process to how we thought about recruiting this spring.
All right, let's start in the backcourt, and we'll start with your leading scorer from last year, David Julius. He is elected to take his super senior year. What have you seen from Dave this offseason? I know from what I've seen of him, he looks like he's got kind of that dog back in him. Like, his competitiveness is back. He seems confident in himself and seems to be ready to go.
Well, I'm going to correct you too, Chad. I mean, he's always had that dog in him since I've been coaching him. And
last summer he was still figuring things out. I think.
Don't get sensitive. I'm going to come at you. You're going to talk
no,
about
that's
my
fine.
guy.
I'm just saying. Last summer,
Dave,
I thought he was
Dave,
finding himself. He was rediscovering that dog.
He walks back a lot of stuff.
That's not walking back. I said what I said.
No, since the day I got here, I've been so impressed with Dave's maturity, his work ethic, and that competitive fire, that you're mentioning, and it's only improved to me since the time I started coaching him, so through the season. And then this off season, he's approached it like a professional. That's probably the best compliment I could give a college player. He takes care of his body. He eats clean. He rests. He works out probably more times a day than I'd want him to. I mean, he's lives in here, but he does it in an intelligent way because he's, taking care of his body in a way that he can handle it physically. And you think sometimes that somebody at his size, how much can they really improve coming off an all-league year? He's really improved. But it's not a secret because it's not just how he approaches his training, but how he approaches his life off the floor as well. So he's been phenomenal. I think he's, grown even more as a young man, and he'll have a lot of leadership responsibility on this team. He's earned that. So I've been pretty pleased with David to date.
Mike Adams-Woods returns in the backcourt as well. Started a bunch of games for you last year. He's an experienced guy. Seems like he's having a really good offseason as well. He seems to be pretty dialed in right now.
Same thing. And again, I kind of started like this. That returning nucleus, they've been great. We call Mike a shoey. It's almost hard to call him Micah anymore because everybody calls him Shoey, but he has Shoey tattooed on his arm. If anybody's ever noticed that, but no, Shoey's it's been like Dave. You just seen a maturity, that's grown within him in terms of his approach and how he handles himself and how consistent he is about taking care of his business, which is an area I challenged him a lot when I got here a year ago. And I mean, physically he looks better. He shot the ball really well here in our summer stuff to date. He looks stronger with the ball. He's finishing better, and continuing to develop defensively. So, again, same thing. Pleased with Shuey to date as well.
How's he handled the challenge of new competition coming in? We'll get to Rob in just a second, but of having another guy in that room that's, is here for minutes. Like Rob Finney didn't transfer to Cincinnati to sit the bench, right? How has Shuey handled that?
Yeah, guys, it's not like a quarterback in football, right? Where you can only play one up, and so I don't think from my perspective as a head coach, and I've never dealt with this. I mean, I'm 11 years as a head coach. I've never dealt with, on any good team I've coached, I've never dealt with anybody having some competition within a position, because in basketball, the way the game is played now and the way that we recruit, you can put the best players on the floor. I mean, some of the best teams in college basketball in the last 10 years have started 2 or 3 point guards, so I don't think that from my perspective as a head coach or from our staff's perspective or our players' perspective that Shuey's sitting around going, it's me or another player on our team. In fact, if that was the case, I'd correct it quickly, because it's not that. You're talking about, Shuey, Rob, David, Julius. I mean, you could play all 3 of them at the same time if they earn those minutes together. And the way that we're going to play, everybody's going to be able to kind of play their own game. They're going to have ball handling responsibilities, decision-making responsibilities, and that thing. So, I mean, I understand the question, but I don't think it applies, at least from my perspective.
Yeah, I think I was talking more about, like, is it something that some guys take it as a challenge? Like, okay, like, I was a starter here. I played a bunch of minutes. Like, bring it on.
I think
Come
you'd have
get
to
some.
ask Shuey, but I think you'd have to ask Shuey. But I think from my perspective,
Yeah.
And from my conversations with Shuey when the season ended, through now, he wants to win. His head is around winning, and he feels like I came to Cincinnati because of what this program is and what it's been, and he wanted to be a part of it and wanted to be a part of the winning that's happened here over the years. And he's been very clear to me, like, we got to win here. I have to win here, and I think he knows that the more he improves and the better player he becomes, that gives our team a better chance. But I think that's where his mindset is, and I think that's that maturity that I speak about from that returning nucleus. That's the vibe that I've gotten. And again, to go back to Dave's question, like, it's July. I'm not going to have a celebration that we've had a good vibe and a good approach. I mean, we got to keep doing that day after day. But to date, with not just Dave or Shuey or whoever else, if we're going to do a roster breakdown, they've all kind of been like that.
Let's talk about Rob. You wanted a little bit more defense, a little toughness in that guard rotation, and Rob was one of the best defenders in the Big Ten through his career at Indiana. How did that come about? Obviously, Mike Roberts knew him from his time coaching at Indiana. I'm guessing Matty Mills probably worked him out a couple thousand hours as a manager at Indiana at that point in time. It feels like that was a pretty comfortable one in terms of you knew all the right information there.
Yeah, I think you look at this spring recruiting cycles that we're going to have now in our sport, and you're making quick decisions, as are the players, right? Coaches and players are making quick decisions because you're in such a limited amount of time from the time they go in the portal to the time they make a decision. Where, like, you take Dan or Josh, for example, we recruited those guys over 6-7 months, before the decision's made. It could be weeks in the transfer portal when you have guys on your staff that have coached kids, and Mike had coached Rob for 2 years at Indiana. Matt Miller, who's in an administrative role here, was a manager on those teams for 4 years with Rob, or 3 or 4 years with Rob. You feel like you have some real information that you might not be able to get with others, that you maybe don't have that kind of familiarity. So listen, I've watched Rob play over the years. When Mike was an assistant at Indiana, I watched almost every game. And so I feel like I've had a really good feel for who he was as a player. He is an elite defensive player. It's proven in his career. He's a reliable point guard. I think he has a little more to offer offensively night in, night out than maybe what he did night in and night out over the last year or so. He's had some great moments offensively, some big games, hit some big shots in his career, some game winners. But I think given the opportunity and given the freedom, I think there's some things that he can maybe show us on a night in, night out basis that maybe he wasn't able to show there. And he's looked pretty good so far in our summer practices.
Let's move to the wing. And with those three guards, all of them can play the one, they can play off the ball. You've got a lot of versatility there, as you mentioned, so that's good.
Yeah, and we're gonna let them, when they're in the game together, we're gonna let all of them push. It's not like we have to define you're the guy bringing it up or you're not. We're gonna let them be themselves.
Dave, you want to ask any wing questions? Okay, I'll handle it. You're muted, so we can't hear you.
No, sorry. You keep crushing this segment.
Okay. Let's go with John Newman, your starter at the 3 for pretty much the entire season last year. He's got his second year in the system. The type of glue guy that coaches love. And it's unfortunate because it felt like every time last year he was really starting to put it together, something would pop up, an ankle sprain or, a knee. You got to feel pretty good about where John is going into his super senior season.
Yeah, it's similar to Dave and Shuey. I mean, the off-season approach, I've been really pleased with it. And it's a little bit like me, kind of coming into the job. We didn't have an off-season last year at all. He didn't. So to be able to now have a real off-season, I think that's really benefited him, with all the transition he was going through last year. And you're right. Last year when he was hurt, it really affected our team. Right. And part of it is because of who he is as a player and what he brings to a team. He does so many of the intangible things. He's such a great defender. He does a lot of little things offensively that don't show up on a stat sheet. But we also didn't have anybody behind him that could bring those same dynamics. So when he was out, now we're playing and we're really small on the perimeter. We don't have that big athletic, traditional, big guard or small forward out on the floor. So two things. One, John's really improved. I'm pleased with his approach and his leadership. And now there's a handful of other guys that you have some of those attributes as well. And I think that bodes well for him and our team.
Jeremiah Davenport, local guy, played a lot at the 4 next year next to John. Is there potential for him to have a little bit more? You talked about positional versatility this year. What is his outlook and how excited is he? I've heard him a couple times. The guy, he was playing against Landers Nolly in open gym, and Landers was having a big game, and Jeremiah's guarding him and running down the court after he made a shot, going, "That's what we were missing last year. We needed to He's another one like Shuey. He seems to me this summer, he's just like, look, man, I don't care where I play. I don't care what my role is. We need to win.
Yeah. Again, it's a consistent theme from that returning group. And, Jeremiah wants to win. I mean, anybody that's ever been around him knows he's a winner. He's won everywhere he's been. And, he's been in a significant role here at Cincinnati the last 2 years and hasn't gotten the kind of results as a team. And I think he takes that personally like other guys do. And it's about winning. He wants to improve, and he's done a nice job of getting leaner so he can move a little bit better defensively and have the ability to guard multiple positions. I think that's something that I've challenged him on. And, I think he knows he has to take some steps there. And I think he's done a nice job with Coach Rayfeld to date. And we're certainly working on those things in practice. I think I probably have a little bit better understanding of who he is as a player at this point in the summer than I did at this point last year. So trying to kind of put him in the right places to even be more effective and play more to his strengths. I think we can do some of those things. But everybody knows how significant of a player Jeremiah is. I want him to improve. He wants to improve. And just like we talked about earlier, he just wants to really win. And I think he can be a big part of winning this year.
Jared Hensley. But people don't really know this because it hasn't been talked about much, but he broke his hand during the season last year, didn't tell anybody. But it ended up being a blessing, right? Because in the offseason, he had to practice one-handed shooting with the shooting hand, and you can tell this story better than me. In some ways, I guess it improved his shot, because when I've seen him shooting this summer, it looks like a completely different animal with the regularity that the ball goes in.
Yeah, I mean, he told us he broke me. I mean, we knew he broke his wrist, but you don't publicize that because if somebody's
he told me he didn't tell anybody. He said he was quiet about it. He didn't want anybody to find out, make him miss any games.
Maybe at some point we knew at the end of the year he was playing
right.
a broken wrist, but you don't publicize that because you don't want somebody to take a shot at you, knowing that you have that kind of an injury on an opposing team. So, I give him a lot of credit for his toughness there. And he played well down the stretch of our season, even despite the injury. And I thought coming off of the end of the year, even though we didn't perform great as a team in the win-loss, category, I thought Jared having some good individual moments really helped his confidence. So I think kind of propelled him into this offseason just to be a more confident player, which is really important because he's always had quite a bit of ability. He's really continued to improve his body. I said this, I think, multiple times. I don't know if I've ever had somebody from the day that they came to college until now ever work harder or be more committed than Jared has been. I've had some guys that maybe as they got older got like that, but he's just had an elite work ethic from the day I've got him. And you mentioned the wrist. He had to have surgery right when the season ended. And it's like anything, sometimes it feels like it's a setback, but probably a blessing now looking back on it for Jared, because Jared has to be in the gym working every day. And when he had his right wrist, in a splint, he's in there shooting one-handed, and he did it every single day, multiple times a day for 6 weeks, 8 weeks. And now he's completely transformed his jump shot. He has a totally different rhythm. He has a better release. His misses are so much smaller. He's making a lot more of them. And he's just going to kind of keep working at it. So his jump shot has looked like it's really improved here this offseason, and I think it'll continue to do that. So it's sometimes, setbacks like that can be hidden blessings.
Landers Nolly joins the program from Memphis. He has been ACC first-team All-Freshman. He has been American Athletic Conference first-team All-Conference. He's a guy that's really talented. He is a guy that really knows how to score the basketball. How has he adjusted and acclimated himself into the program? I know from watching him in some open gyms, that is a competitive dude.
He's done well. I've enjoyed him. He's really come in and started to build relationships with his teammates. And that was important to me, especially because they played against each other. And I think I give our returning guys a lot of credit for embracing him. And then I give him a lot of credit for coming in with a humble approach and a workman-like approach. And he's been a thrill. I've said this a lot. The coaches asked about him a lot on the road when we've been recruiting. And I tell you what, he comes in with a lunch pail every day. He works. He's really coachable. We played against him, so we've always known how well he could shoot the ball and kind of attack a closeout. The one thing that's really been evident to us as a coaching staff is he's really good with the ball in his hands. Mm-hmm. You can put him in a ball screen, and he's a big guard and can make the right plays in the ball screen. He's good with the ball on the open floor. He makes the simple play, but the right play. And he can finish around the basket. So I think he's shown some things that maybe surprised us a little bit. But his to date at least, but his approach, his attitude, the way that he's kind of assimilated within our team, that's been stuff that's been really positive to date.
Josh Reid got here early. We'll get to Dan in just a second, since they don't like to graduate high school until almost August on the East Coast. But Josh Reid has looked like, when I've seen him, has looked like a college player. He doesn't look like a freshman that is adjusting to college. And I'm sure there's plenty of that he has to do, but at least physically and his confidence in the way he plays, he seems like he's adjusted well to that first couple weeks of college life.
Yeah, he's going to be really good, guys. He's really intelligent as a player.
And human.
Like,
smarter than me.
What's that?
I said he's smarter than me, and he's 18. It's not difficult, not a high bar to clear.
You just threw a lob to Dave to come off of mute and dunk that one. But no, he's a really intelligent player, and I mean that in the sense that you're coaching new concepts to even if somebody comes in and has been coached really well. And Josh's high school coach, Sharman White's one of the most well-known high school coaches in the country. At Pace Academy, and he just coached the under-17 USA national team. I mean, he's a well-renowned coach and a terrific high school coach. So Josh has been coached, but even when you're introducing new concepts with new terminology, it takes young players some time. And it's not like we're coaching down to the freshman level. We're getting them to kind of raise up. So we're not coaching to the back of the class type of thing. When you say something to Josh Reid and explain it to him, he can listen to it and go out and do it right away. And that's a really unique thing for a freshman in summer practice, from my experience. So I've been really impressed with his feel and his intelligence. He's really quietly competitive. If you get around him to interview him, or if you don't know him well, sometimes you think he's pretty quiet and reserved, but there's a fire burning in there. And so he's been really competitive in our practices. And, the positional versatility is so fun with him, because he's got the body that he can defend bigger guys, but he's athletic enough to get out and defend smaller guys. And he can kind of do it all offensively. He can kind of, he's a guy that can pass, dribble, and shoot, and knows how to play. So he's going to be a great player here, and has done a nice job so far this summer.
Dan Skillings got here a little bit late, like I jokingly said before, because they don't graduate high school until like the middle of June on the East Coast. So he didn't get here, probably 2 or 3 weeks behind the other guys. How has he been able to catch up, even though, everybody else has had a head start? And I mean, this is a kid that hasn't played a ton of basketball, or organized basketball at least, starting as a junior. How's he getting up to speed?
It's like Josh. I mean, it's been impressive. It's in the same way. I mean, he's just eager, listens, coachable, and there's a lot of ability there, right? He's it's so funny because you watched him with his high school team at Roman Catholic, or last summer with his AAU team Philly Pride, and he's physically pretty imposing, at the guard spot. It's 6'6" and 7, long wingspan. And then he shows up for college practice, and he's, he hasn't been training with the other guys, and he looks like a high school player. He's thin, and
right.
But his body's alive. It's active. He's got just a knack for getting around the ball. And he's, like you said, he started a couple weeks late. So there's some things that he has to kind of figure out that even the other freshmen were taught. But as a coach, that doesn't bother you. He's been good. Just like Josh. I mean, I've been impressed with his ability to pick up concepts, and he's going to be a really good player here.
The one thing that jumped out the most at me is kind of like what surprises you about Dan. Really good on the offensive glass, which you don't think of for a guy that's thin and long and more of a scoring wing. But you mentioned nose for the ball. That's not just putting the ball in the basket. He really has a feel for going to find the ball in the glass offensively.
And he's shown that so far in our summer practice for sure. It was the first thing I noticed the first time I saw him play in recruiting. He got 3 offensive rebounds in like 5 possessions, and it made me want to watch more. And then you see, okay, he can shoot the basketball, and he's, he can drive it, and he finishes and gets his hands on a lot. I mean, you start to see some of the other things that get you excited, but the way he caught my attention was going to the offensive board, and he's done a nice job of that in our summer practice already too.
2 returning big guys, Victor Locken, Odi Aguama. You talked about Sage a little bit. How do you see this situation at the 5 shaking out? Because you add in Kalu, you've got bodies, but is Kalu really a 5? Does he play more 4? Like, how in your brain are you seeing this develop as you go through the summer?
Well, I think with all 4 of those guys, it's kind of goes back to the question you asked about guard play. I mean, they're not competing necessarily with each other. They're competing with themselves, right? Like, how effective can they be? How much can they improve? And if the best 2 players to put in the game are 2 of those guys, then we'll play with 2 of them at the same time. If it's another way. So I think we have a roster now that we can be really versatile in our lineups to make sure that the guys that earn the time are the guys that get on the floor together. And I think we've, tried to start the process of putting in an offensive system that allows us to do that and have some lineup versatility per se. So I don't think it's not football. It's not a quarterback competition. It's hard to have multiple quarterbacks. It's not like that in basketball. And I think, hey, listen, at times we tried to play Hayden and Abdul together last year. That's really difficult because they're both centers. I think all 4 of the guys we have now have the physical ability to guard multiple positions. And if they can do that and then they excel in other areas, then we can play them together and do it well. So I've been pleased with all 4 of their approaches. They're all 4 very different, and I don't know, do you want to go through each one?
We can go through each one real quick. We're getting close to your time limit. I just, I don't want
to. So can I just send this to everybody that wants like a roster breakdown?
Yeah.
The rest of the year, I'm just going to say,
I'll send you a link.
Dad's podcast.
Yeah, we'd be happy for you to push this out to however many thousands
save me some time. So like Odi, like I thought offensively last year, man, as the year went on, he got better and better and better. And I think that spoke to his commitment to working on his game outside of practice. There was times we were much better in the game offensively when he was in the game. And so he's kind of continued that, through this offseason. So I've been really pleased with his approach. My challenge to Odie is to continue to do that, and he's got to really improve defensively so he can guard multiple positions. So he's got to do a better job when he's guarding a true center, but he's also got the athleticism. In length, he should be able to get out there and guard guards and switch on ball screens and guard those smaller fours and that type of thing. So I think that's going to be really important to see him continue to work on. But he's had a great summer so far. Talked about Sage already gaining weight and being able to withstand the rigors of practice in the summer, better than we thought. We know about his skill, and he's a terrific young man. Vic, I think it's so interesting to me because his improvement this offseason could have a humongous impact on this team. He's athletic. He has the ability to really guard multiple different positions. He's smart. He's skilled. I think we can use him in both the 4 and the 5 type of spot, the way that we play. You want to be able to throw him the ball, consistently on the block to go score and throw it to him on the perimeter to make plays for our team. And he's had a great offseason. I mean, his body started to really change. He's changed his shot and really worked on that. So, I'm excited about what he's done to this point in the offseason, and we want him to continue to develop, but he'll be a really important piece to our team. And then Kalu Ezekpe gives us that stability, that 4 years of college basketball, a ton of success in Conference USA, which is a league that I have a lot of respect for. I think he has the ability to be an elite rebounder, and I'm going to push him to do that. I think he's a guy that you can throw it to that can score a basket and be effective in a role. But he's also a guy that can make plays with the ball in his hands. And we'll put him in some of that point forward type of role at times to see if he can kind of create some offense for us. So I think they're all 4 very different, but I think they all have the ability to be versatile and play with one another if they earn that.
I'm going to warn you. I saw Kalu walk through the weight room during Squat Fest for the football team, and a couple of those football coaches gave him a kind of a, who's that? So keep an eye on Fickle. They might come sniffing on Kalu.
Well, I tried to get Sauce Gardner to come play for me every time I saw him in the hallway last year, and it didn't work. So I don't think the football coaches have any chance. But since they let me try all year, I'm sure they can try. But Kalu's a terrific athlete. The way he moves and hits at his size, I mean, it's going to be impactful for us on the basketball court. If I was a football coach, I'd be recruiting his butt too. And you guys know he grew up in the state of Georgia. Yeah. So if you don't think in Atlanta, if you don't think that all the football coaches at his high school were trying to do that and weren't able to do it, he's been through that before. So he's a basketball guy. He loves the game.
Did you watch Evan Prater when he was in high school? Did you ever get to see him?
I did not.
He could hoop. Like he was a MAC A10 level player and like coming out of high school. So that's the one you'll want to keep your eye on going forward. Prater could play a little bit.
Sounds like I need to go into Coach Pickle's office and start recruiting there first, huh?
The funny thing is you joked about versatility now. Like you could almost go like your order and a value meal at a drive-through, small, medium, and large with how you guys play this year, right? And are we gonna see the press? You wanted to press last year, didn't really necessarily fit. Is it more of a fit for what you have now?
I certainly think we have a roster that can do that, and so we're going to put it in, and we'll see how it looks as we go through the preseason. I've always liked being aggressive on both ends of the floor, and I think we'll have a chance to be more aggressive defensively this year. In terms of how lineups are going to look, it's July. The way that these
I'm not
guys,
saying what guy specific.
Yeah,
guys,
but I mean, whether we play smaller, bigger, or mix it, it'll have more to do with who's earned that, how to get the best guys on the floor, the best combinations on the floor, and we'll try all that stuff and give all that stuff an opportunity, and then we roll out to play games. We're going to try to put I think it's really simple with us. So we're going to try to put the people on the floor and the lineups on the floor that give us the best chance to win. And so what that looks like in November and December, we don't know yet. But as you mentioned, there's a lot of different possibilities.
We got a CJ Anthony fan in the chat. Give us a minute on CJ Anthony.
Yeah, I'm glad. I was trying to think. You didn't ask about any? Is there somebody we didn't ask about? CJ. Yeah, I wouldn't bypass him. He's a non-scholarship player at Cincinnati right now, but he's a Division I scholarship player. He had Division I offers coming out of high school. So the term walk-on doesn't apply to CJ Anthony. I mean, if you ask the players on our team that entered our program, I bet they don't even know that he's not on scholarship. And I say that because he's just one of the guys, and not just in how he's treated, but in how he plays. When we recruited CJ, part of it was I've always wanted to have enough ball handling and point guard play on our roster. And I think he's good enough to play significant minutes here at Cincinnati. I've challenged him to really work on his game this offseason and his decision-making and his skill. He's done that. He is so much better in our practices now, taking care of the ball and making decisions than he was at the end of the season last year. He's still got to slow down a little bit and make better decisions with the ball. But I think he can. I think he's going to play minutes here at some point, and meaningful minutes here at Cincinnati at some point, because of his work ethic and his ability. The one thing he probably hasn't had a chance to really show people, he can really shoot the basketball. I know people up in Columbus that watched him in high school know that. He's a terrific
all-time leading scorer in Columbus.
Yeah, he's a terrific shooter, and he works at it every day. I think we've started to kind of establish, and I say we because it's our players first, have established a culture that if you're in this program, you're going to work at it every day. And so they're all like that, but CJ's right in there with all of them. And, I've been impressed with him so far in the summer. I will say this to give him some love. He took 2 charges in practice yesterday, and he dove on a loose ball that looked like a ball he couldn't get. And so I thought 2 of those 3 plays were 2 of the best hustle and effort plays we've had all summer. And I stopped and told the whole team that. And that tells you a little bit about kind of the kind of young man he is.
Dave, anything for Coach before we let him go?
Yeah, I want to know, you said you've been busy, but how is the golf game? And as things slow down in August, when are we going to tee it up?
Man.
Dave's been like, you got to bug him about when we're going to play golf. He said he would play golf with me.
I'd love to play. It's not going to be in the next couple of weeks, I can tell you that. But maybe in early August, Dave, we can get out there and tee it up. I've played more this summer than I did last summer. That's for sure. Still haven't played quite a bit because we got so much going on. When I do play, how good of a golfer I am right now depends on what hole you watch me play or what shot you see me hit.
I feel the same way. Like I want to invent 15-hole golf courses because I feel like every time I get to the last 3 holes, no matter how good it was, it goes totally off the rails.
Yeah, Dave, I'm more clutch than you. I always play well down the stretch here now. But the truth of it is, during the pandemic, when I'm talking about when things really shut down, I live near a golf course in Greensboro, and so when we couldn't do anything, your players were home. I would go out and for a couple hours just to get outside, hit golf balls, or go walk 6 or 7 holes. I did it like daily, and I got to the point I could actually hit a golf ball consistently. And ever since then, I've just hit the golf ball like a basketball coach. Like I'm back to hitting it like a basketball coach. Like, I mean, I might,
the guy that gets to play 4 times a year or something.
Yeah. I mean, I might, play 4 or 5 holes and, be 1 under, 2 under or something, and then play the next 3 holes and go double, triple, double. So I play golf like a basketball coach, but when the money's on the line at the end, Dave, I want to be gambling against you because I'm pretty good on 16, 17, 18.
Well, I mean, I'll probably have built up such a lead that it won't matter.
Golf kind of saved you, Wes, because I went to LA for vacation, went to UCLA for my official visit. Coach Savino took me on the golf cart, drove me around, showed me the wooden statue, took me in the locker room at Pauley, took me in the practice facility. And, I was ready to commit, but the head coach was out playing golf. So I had to stick with my commitment to Cincinnati. The head coach kind of messed that one up.
So Coach Cronin was out there teeing it up, huh?
He was out getting around him with some boosters.
We got people in the chat saying they'll caddy for us too. I mean, this can be a whole Bearcat Journal thing.
Let's make it an event.
All right, man. I know you have a ton going on, and we greatly appreciate you taking some time to chat with us and get back and get the team ready for the rest of the summer and get through these last couple weeks. And maybe I will see you on the wall at the Peach Jam next week at some point in time.
Oh, I know I'll see you guys. And guys, I enjoyed as always, and I appreciate what you guys do covering our program. I mean that. So
and we'll send you this. We'll send you this link. So if anybody asks you for a roster breakdown, you can just be like,
send it out.
We appreciate you joining. I know our fans know, but we get Coach Fickle, and I don't. A lot of people that do what we do don't have that ability. So we definitely appreciate when you and other coaches are able to come and join us.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Dave. Appreciate you guys. Y'all have a good one now.
Appreciate you, Wes.
You too.
See you soon. Thanks, buddy.
Bye.
All right, there we go. That was Cincinnati head coach Wes Miller. It's a good. Almost we got about 50 minutes there, 45 or 50 minutes exactly on the dot. Can't ask for nothing better than that. And then for anybody that had a question about where things stand with the roster or how guys are looking in the summer, Chad, can we get a summer update? I just got you a player-by-player individual summer update in the middle of the summer. I don't think I can do anything better than that.
You're not going to get a better one, and a more accurate one, a more insightful one. I mean, it's single sourced.
Right. From the guy that's calling the shots. There's your timestamp. If you're looking to sponsor and become part of the Bearcat Journal family, you can sponsor the timestamps. So hit me up if you have.
I do have an idea for a potential timestamp sponsor or a sponsor in general that we will discuss off air.
Okay. So. When does the conference schedule usually get released? I think it's usually in early August. Mid-August, somewhere in there. I know last year, I think it was a little bit later just because they were so new to the job and kind of had to, work some things out. August, mid-August, late August, somewhere in there, I guess would be my guess, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Any thoughts? Thoughts from what you heard from Coach Miller?
Just just a general excitement from the standpoint of that. I just think the roster fits so much better, and that can be expected because, we all understand when he came on, and the first year is always hard, and with the transfer portal, you're kind of piecemealing so many things together. But this group as a whole, whether it's the returners fitting better into their roles, the new guys, what they can possibly bring. I just think it just fits so much better. We've talked about it, several times. I think the athleticism, the length, he mentioned it, just the overall traits of the entire roster is much more on a upward trajectory, high level type group that, we'll see what comes of it when we get on the floor in November. But just the overall composition and the guys, I think should have everybody pretty excited about the possibility for this season.
You know what I'm excited about, Dave?
What's that?
Having more than one wing on the roster.
Yeah.
If you look around college basketball, it is a wings game now, man. Like having guys 6'5", 6'6", 6'7" that can put the ball in the basket and defend, like that is where the game has gone. And John Newman was their only wing last year. To have Landers now and to have Josh Reid and Dan Skillings and even Jeremiah as he reshapes and prepares a little bit better for what Wes expects of him, like it feels so much better looking at this roster to go, you know what? We've got wings. Like we got guys. We're not playing 6'3" guards at the 3 anymore.
Right.
I hated that.
Yeah, it didn't fit. It was, and I think they've done a lot of work and there has been a lot of turnover, but the parts I think just fit a lot better. They gave you a lot more options, like he was talking about with lineups, and it's not necessarily this guy or this guy. It can be, if the matchups are in your favor or, things like that. Like it can be this guy and this guy because, we have
versatility.
We have versatility, and then we're not hamstrung at the other spots where maybe before it was like, yeah, I'd love to play these guys together, but then we don't have what we need at the other 3 spots to supplement that and to make that part of it work.
Right. All right. That's an hour of basketball for the basketball junkies. And it sounds like tomorrow night might be Little Birdie season with the TBT guys. So I'm looking forward to potentially getting down there tomorrow night and watching a nice lengthy open gym session, which I won't have to rush home to do this podcast because we're doing it now. Man. So I'm excited about that.
Living large.
Maybe Friday we'll pop in with a surprise afternoon show or something. If Aaron's not a dad by then, we gotta figure that out. We got that coming.
Yeah.
But Aaron's taking paternity leave at some point in time here. Hope he doesn't do it like Justin. Justin took like 2 months.
I'm not taking 2 months. Come on, man. Hate.
You could produce a show while given a bottle.
Yeah, for sure.
For this show, it won't be bad. For the BBP, it might be interesting.
Make it work.
Her first words are going to be, "How are we?"
Oh, God.
Oh,
no.
God.
No, I wear headphones for that exact reason.
Good thing you don't have like a parakeet.
The parakeet would just be walking around the house all day. How are we?
You walk in
Aaron.
the room and he says that.
It'd be cool if it was sit.
All right. Well, that'll do for basketball for now. We'll have plenty more as we get through the summer and then get into to August and get school started and get these guys all together as they start working towards the season. But that was your summer Wes Miller update that you get here on Bearcat Journal. Let's go, I guess, Dave. We'll go topical, right? We'll go first. Big 12 media days today.
Sure.
And what were your thoughts after watching new Commissioner Brett Yormark speak to the media?
Oh, let's see. I would probably boil it down into kind of like 3 maybe main takeaways. One, obviously, the thing that is on everybody's. Oh, thank you, Antonio, for the donation. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Antonio.
I would say, obviously, the thing that's on everybody's mind is conference realignment. He's obviously not going to get into the specifics of it, but, the quote that is, going around on Twitter is open for business. And he later talked about how that means a lot of things, not just conference realignment. We talked about conversations, phone calls. I mean, the usual song and dance, but I think that just only exemplifies kind of what we heard, that they're very, very comfortable with what they have, but they are absolutely not sitting on their hands. The level that is being reciprocated by Pac-12 schools, who knows? He made a comment of it has to be a value equation. It has to be additive and not dilutive. And I think that is, could be 100% wrong. I think that is a direct comment of like, if these schools don't want to join, we don't really need anybody else. So I think, you kind of got what you expected to get from him in that regard. A lot of talk about where he sees the brand of the Big 12 moving forward. talked about a national brand or a more national brand. Talked about a younger, hipper, cooler brand, and who knows exactly what that means, but and just talked about a stronger social media presence, and I think just kind of coinciding with NIL, which he is also said he was a proponent of, but thinks there should be some guardrails and maybe some uniformity. I think he's just looking at it as this sport, and obviously it's football media day, so the sport and college sports as a whole, I feel like he sees it as something that is going to be extremely transformative over the next, say, decade. And how does he, from a branding perspective, from a sponsorship perspective, how does he and his vision align to moving it in that direction and it not just being, the same old stuff that we see on a daily basis? Like, again, I don't know what that means. I don't know if any of us knows what that means. I mean, the guy's done major sponsorship and branding deals, so I'm sure he's got an idea, but it's just interesting to hear or to see him and see where that ends up going. I'm trying to scroll through some tweets here.
Do you think we'll see any integration, though, of his relationships with the music industry in that regard? Is that...
I mean, I would hope so. I mean, you have those connections and things like that. I mean, I think he is going to do anything he can to build the brand. You talked about expanded and new revenue streams, and the whole media partner platform is an evolving thing. I mean, we don't only, but we think about it from a TV standpoint. Mm-hmm. But like at some point, the streaming thing has started with the NFL,
right?
With the Thursday night package on Prime. Like at some point, that's gonna come into college sports. It is already with ESPN Plus, but I'm not sure I look at it the same way, because that's ESPN just putting other content on their own streaming platform. It's not Apple or Netflix or something like that coming in and truly buying a portion of the media package. But that's coming.
Yeah.
Like, is the Big Ten, because they're at first, are they going to be the first ones to kind of jump into that realm?
I can't see that.
Or is the Big Ten or the Big 12, Pac-12, I don't know. I mean, somebody's going to be the first.
Well, I mean, and if you're looking for ways to make additional money outside of just the TV contract, the TV media contract, right? I would think that there would be, with somebody who had potentially like an Amazon or an Apple type platform, that there may be additional waves of revenue that you can tap into if you were to go that route.
Right. I mean, he did have one comment that I thought was super interesting based on his background, NIL, and kind of where some people see the landscape going. He talked about what this college sports look like in 5 years. And he sees more commercialization and conferences taking a bigger responsibility, decision-making that they don't have the power to make now. I mean, if that doesn't follow the pro sport model and, the idea of us as our own entity, like owning things and getting away from the NCAA, I don't know what does. Like, I mean, talking about taking a bigger responsibility and making decisions that they don't know. I mean, that is, what other decisions does a conference make that that isn't NCAA related, that they would maybe make a different decision, but they can't because of the NCAA?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that seems like just a bunch of high level speak if you were just trying to get somebody off of whatever topic that you were trying to get off of. But
yeah,
I don't know. I felt like it was a nice blend, though, of him kind of keeping things close to the vest while at the same time saying that he's going to be fairly aggressive and kind of giving you not too much as he's still not even accepted the position officially.
Yeah, and I think
he's accepted it, but not started it officially.
Right. Some of the questions he got were like, to me, like the old inside baseball. Like, what are you going to do about the conference schedule? And like, frankly, I don't care what he says about that. That's going to work itself out.
Sure.
And two, he hasn't even started. Like I don't want him wasting 1 second of his time on what the conference schedule might be. I mean, I want him solely focused on the conference composition and the TV deal. Like, they'll figure out a damn schedule. It ain't hard.
And I mean, you heard him talk about his schedule upcoming in the next 60 to 90 days, where he's literally going to just be starting his relationships with all of the universities, making his rounds to each individual university, both old, I would think, starting with the old and then eventually getting to your Cincinnati, BYU.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, your current, well, as much as we want to talk about it and as much as we want to fast track it, like, we're not, I guess we are technically, but we're not stakeholders currently.
Correct. But as he's trying to get a vision for what that looks like,
sure,
I would think that you'd probably still venture to them, but just at the end of all of this, once you've gotten a good feel for what your current 10 schools are looking for.
Yeah, I also thought the whole the comments of, there was discussion on the Texas and Oklahoma element, and he certainly didn't shoot down the idea of them working out a deal to let them leave early. He said, basically it has to, it can be a win-win, but it also has to be, in the best interest of the Big 12, which basically means you want to go in 2024. All right. How much do you want to how important is it to you?
Yeah, I thought that was, I don't know. I mean, I've seen people talking about, well, ESPN's going to help them get out of their contract.
They can't. I mean, unless they're just paying for it. I mean, but then who cares where the money comes from? Like,
sure. I don't see them.
And it's not like ESPN is in a situation to just start burning money, like catching money on fire right now.
$160 million just to get Oklahoma and Texas into the SEC 1 year early.
How many people has ESPN laid off in the last 3 years?
Right.
So, but I just thought it's kind of been the first time anyone's really commented on it from a standpoint of like, yeah, I'd be happy to have that conversation. We can do a win-win. It doesn't need to be a, holding them over the barrel type thing. But he said, but then he said, like, it also needs to be the right move for the conference. So, that means how important is it to you to get to the SEC in 2024 instead of 2025? Honestly, and I do think we'll eventually get there. I feel like every time something is in the works, possibly you have like you have huge things that pop up that then gum up the process. Like, I just don't see why they wouldn't just pay the money, work out a deal to pay the money to leave 1 year sooner.
Honestly, what else was he supposed to say in that situation, though?
Yeah, and I think it depends on too is if they get 4 of the Pac-12 schools. I think you're more willing to go ahead and let that happen a year earlier, because then that allows you to open up your TV contract a year early, and you can go ahead and negotiate that new deal, knowing that these 2 are out, these 4 are in. This is
who we are. Yeah. Did you see the comments from Gundy?
What about, like, ask them? They're the ones that are leaving, or what? Or about Bedlam, or about what?
No. So somebody asked him. I guess like Texas and Oklahoma are still in all the meetings, and Gundy's like, they're leaving. Like, what the hell? Why are we talking? Why do they matter? Like, what do we care? Like, they're out.
Well, somebody asked him about like
Bedlam,
the future of Bedlam or something, and he was just like, I don't know. We're not the ones leaving.
I love Gundy.
So there's only 1 or 2 more years left. This is their fault.
Yeah,
he's spectacularly weird.
Yeah, but I mean, Yormark didn't say anything that is like holy shit, but I wasn't expecting him to. But
still had to feel good though about the direction that the conversation went.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just more looking at it as like the sponsorship and the branding arm, because I think that's important. It's not, you just can't look at this stuff anymore as just the games. And I know that's going to feel weird and look weird to a certain generation. And I'm probably part and parcel to some of that, where like, I don't know what these things are that they might introduce, but I'm not the target.
Right.
Like, you've already got me. I'm already going to all the games. I'm already going to watch Texas Tech versus West Virginia on a Friday night on FS1 because I'm a fan of the league that my team is playing in. And so you've got me, but like, there is a whole subsection and a whole demographic that is up for grabs. And I want to find it because Dan Wetzel kind of he tweeted it, and he was like, when future student athletes of this conference are thinking about where they want to go next, as they are making those decisions on what schools to go to, I want our brand, Big 12, to be aspirational. And Dan was like, these are obviously just buzzwords, and actually developing such a brand is a challenge, but it's rare that commissioners talk about being focused on recruiting or helping schools in recruiting, which is everything in college sports. Like, telling the story, whether it's through social, like being more than just like, hey, here's our game on ESPN. Like, there has to be more activation, more elements to being in a conference than just like, here, this is where all these teams that kind of like football get to hang out together.
Well, and I think he kind of doubled down with that with his comments on the NIL and how he wanted to be as much to the forefront as he could be to try and help out the universities and the conference as a whole in kind of guiding their student athletes through NIL dealings and all of that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's already been involved in it through Rock Nation. So
just on the other side of it, right?
Yeah.
All right. I think that it's a good look into today's festivities. Thanks, Aaron. I was being pressured by my 11-year-old to order dinner. I'm kind of in the middle of something here.
What is your 11-year-old 67? She eats dinner at 5:45?
Well, like if you order delivery, or, I'm obviously not able to cook, so that takes like an hour. So it'll be at 6:30.
She can order it. I'm sure she has your credit card number somewhere.
No, she's got Kelly's. she knows better. She lost that privilege when she was like 4 and charged $1,000 in
the Apple scam. Or
yeah.
Not really scam, just
Yeah, she was donating to content creators without my knowledge, and I got a call from the credit card company like, is this something you wanted? No, and you'll never get my credit card again, kid. You blew it.
Yeah, right.
So what do we want to do now? Do we want to submit our unwanted entry to the American Athletic Conference media poll?
We can do that, or we can kind of put a bow on conference expansion, which I do have one thing that I wanted to ask you about.
We'll save the best for last. We'll save the names out of a hat.
I did want to ask you about, because it is an interest. It's, I'm to the point now where unless there is actual news, I don't have any interest in talking about it. So this is like our last time talking about it.
Until there's actual news.
Right. But I did want to ask you, because Andy Staples from The Athletic, Dan Wetzel has written a piece on it, and him and Pat Forty have kind of talked about it on their Yahoo College Football Inquirer podcast. The discussion has been about, okay, if you go after these Pac-12 schools, say the 6 of them, we all know the names.
Yeah.
Do you, or would you, if you were Brett Yormark, if you were John Cunningham, if you were anybody that gets to make a decision in the Big 12, would you leave an out for, say, Oregon and Washington, or really all 6 of them?
No.
Would you leave an out that they could join the Big 10 if that invite ever came? Not scot-free. I mean, there's obviously be some sort of a payment involved. But would you leave that out as a way to entice them, knowing that is not something the Pac-12 can offer, and that if they're going to keep this Pac-12 together, they're going to have to sign a grant of rights? And those two schools especially probably being like, well, we're not doing that. Because your thinking is, sure, maybe the Big Ten calls, but what if it doesn't? And now they're here for a while, and we've just cashed in on this much bigger TV deal because we have those schools.
Thank you, Keith. You're the best. And the answer is no.
Okay, why?
Because I don't like where you head if you start giving different sets of rules to different teams in the conference. I have seen that in the Big East. Maybe that is an extreme example of what you're talking about. But when you have different people with different agendas and different sets of rules, I think you're asking for trouble.
So you'd rather not have them at all?
Yeah. Yep.
And say get $10 million more a year per school.
Yep.
Okay.
Here's the question, Dave. Like, we're not talking about bringing in USC and UCLA. Like, we're not talking about bringing in anybody that's going to take the Big 12 evaluation and jump it $20 million a school. Like,
not 20, but I think it would be fairly.
You think once you spread out the payments, I don't think it changes much. I haven't seen an evaluation for any of those Pac-12 schools remaining that is substantially higher than what the Big 12 is already looking at.
Their valuation right now is roughly, I mean, we'll go off of what's being put out there. It's about $300 million a year.
And when you divide that by 6,
okay,
you get about the same number that they're looking at.
No, you're adding that on to what the Big 12 is already going to get.
Okay, Dave, but the Big 12 is already going to get projected about $50 million per school by 2026 or 2027.
Right.
So if you add $300 million into that and then disperse that $50 million to those 6 schools, it's equal. If you were adding, my point being, if those 6 schools added $600 million and you take the $300 million that they're going to get, and then you have an extra $300 million to disperse to everyone,
that's
maybe
what it would be. It would be extra money because they're not in your league.
But you have to give them their money.
Right, but
they get the $300 million that they're going to bring in.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? They're not bringing in an extra $300 million. They are paying for themselves equal to what the conference is already valued at. I get the strength in that, and the strength in killing the Pac-12 for one.
That's the other point is where's your how much more money do you get from, say, Fox? Because somebody still wants the West Coast.
Fox has already said they're out on the Pac-12.
No, but I'm saying somebody still wants the West Coast time slot. Like, that time slot is not just going away.
I mean, if you're the Big 12, you're in the Central Time Zone, and now you're in the Mountain Time Zone. Like, you could provide that
in the
content.
East Time Zone, you could have a game from noon to midnight every Saturday.
You could do that with the Mountain Time Zone.
I mean, if you had BYU, is the only one.
Or you could say, a team in Texas kicks off at 8:00 on Saturday night, which is, 9:00, and that game is rolling until midnight, 12:30.
I'm not saying I would do it. I just think it's an interesting.
I just don't like the idea
because I don't think
one group of schools having something, because then everybody's going to want it. Everybody
can have it, but everybody's not going to get asked to go to the Big Ten. So it doesn't.
Any of those schools are going to get asked to go to the Big Ten either.
That's the whole point. They're probably not. So wouldn't you just rather have them then?
Yeah.
That is my whole point.
I mean, if you have them, great. If they don't have them, I'm not going to be upset if Cincinnati doesn't get to play Colorado, Arizona State, Utah.
I'm not
or
either,
Washington.
but like, if your goal is to be the third conference, which you're not, no one's catching the SEC and the Big Ten. So if your goal is to be the third conference and make as much money as you can, like, it really only applies to Oregon and Washington. Like, the Big Ten's not taking Arizona State.
Right.
But it's like, what are the chances they don't take them ever? And now they're in your conference, and you're making $60 million at the front end instead of 47 or something.
Okay.
I mean,
Like, it doesn't.
It's going to matter when the Big Ten's making 117 in 2029.
Sure, but you're never going to get close to that.
No, but just why not try to get as close as you can?
I guess. I mean, I don't like one
And it
set
probably
of
wouldn't
members
happen
of a
because
conference.
it probably wouldn't happen because people would be like, yeah, I don't want to play by different rules. But I just look at it as like,
I just think like that's how you get instability in your conference. If these schools have this and these schools don't, now, like, I just think it's like now this group has a voting block that's different from over here, and now these people don't like that. You're already flirting with that. Like, if you get any of the West Coast schools and you try to get them to align with Texas schools, or, you know, the West and the Southwest are not
right.
They generally are. They don't mix like Kool-Aid and water.
I look at it as like they don't have a lot of options, and so if they came, it wouldn't be like in a year or two, some new option would pop up where they'd be like, oh yeah, I know you said we could only leave for the Big Ten, but we're going to go over here. Like, it's one or the other. So they're either in the conference for, I won't say eternity, that's a long time, or they get invited. And it doesn't sound like that they would get it as of now. You know, the tea leaves make it sound like the Big Ten is very happy with what they did. And if they wanted to do more, I'm sure they could have. And they've chosen not to because they're waiting on Notre Dame.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I get it. It doesn't.
It's just a topic that I'm like, why is this all of a sudden a topic if, like, somebody's not talking about it behind the scenes, maybe?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
It was a weird thing to sprout up in a couple different areas to just be like, oh, here's an idea that I totally came up with on my own
from Pac-12 leadership.
How about
from
they
some
do
of
this?
these people in the Pac-12?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that there's the Pac-12 is in a world of hurt. I mean, I sent a very jokingly tweet the other night about how the one of the guys that covers the conference 4 days ago talked about how the Pac-12, you know, ACC Alliance 2.0, whatever you want to call it, you know, was sounding better by the day. And then whatever it was last night or the night before, he tweeted about how, you know, a new harebrained idea about the Big 12 and Pac-12 merging. And I'm like, wait a second, like, you know, what's the headline going to be on Thursday? Like, and Pac-12 NFC join forces? No, seriously? Like, it just seems like they are. It kind of goes back to what I said from the very beginning. When you know that two of the schools who are now the two, you know, from a football standpoint, the two tent poles in your conference are looking for a way to go somewhere else, how can you possibly tie yourself to that and have any confidence that it's going to be successful?
And that's kind of where I'm at. Like, the thing I think, if you give people outs, people are always going to have a wondering eye.
But the Big 12 doesn't go away if they have 18 teams and then Oklahoma or then Oregon and Washington go to the Big 10.
I'm not saying it'll go away, but I'm saying you're going to be you would always deal like Robert suggested what you suggested.
Yeah.
Give the whole conference an out. If you do that, they're always going to have an eye on, well, we got
That's great. I have an eye on a lot of things. That doesn't mean I'm ever going to get it.
Yeah, but you think about if your wife was like, Dave, you can sleep with whoever you want to, and it won't impact our relationship. Every girl that walked by, you'd be like, maybe.
Nah,
I don't know. Maybe.
I don't look at it the same way. It has to also be reciprocated.
Sure, but if you're always looking, you're going to eventually find something that you're looking for.
Not in this. What could they possibly find?
2036, the ACC comes up.
14 years from now, I'll take my chances that they're in the league for 14 years and that it's not financially beneficial to UC and the rest of the Big 12, that over those 14 years, if they then want to go and have a Miami, Florida to Seattle, Washington trip, I'd be fine with it. Them in the league, like, we have to get out of this thought process that leagues are these things for 100 years. And UC fans know this better than anybody. I think that's a hard thing for all these other schools to realize because they've been in the same league forever. Like, UC's been in more leagues than I think anybody over the last, 25, 30 years. If Oregon and Washington are in the Big 12 for 14 more years, and then something weird happens and they go, I'm totally cool with that because they've provided their worth from a financial standpoint and a competitive standpoint to make it worth our while for that to happen.
Yeah. I mean, you make some good points. I don't like the idea of teams in a conference playing by a different set of rules than the other.
I don't like it on its face, but I'm looking at it as like, what are your other options?
You tell them just come on, let's go.
No, I'm saying what are their other options? Like, it's not like that's what I meant. Like, it's not like they come and then a year later they're like, oh, this new thing was way better. Like, they're not getting invited to the SEC ever.
If the valuation is there, they would.
The valuation is what it is. Like, they already would have been invited if it was that great.
Right.
So I'm saying it's not there.
So if it was that great, if it's that great, then if it's not that great, then why do you have to have them?
It's not that great to the two leagues that are making $100 million a year. It's definitely okay for the league that's trying to be third.
I don't know that it changes enough for me to give them.
I just think
treatment.
it ends in if we're going to this super conference, or I think now maybe more of like a 4 or 16 team type deal, it totally wipes out one and it puts you significantly higher than the other, who in 14 years we know has teams that are going to be trying to get out of that conference.
Right.
To try to convince the SEC or the Big 10 to go bigger than 16.
Yeah, I mean,
but again, I don't know.
To the question you asked me, no, I personally would not give them a special set of rules that they get to play by that nobody else gets to play by.
I also would want to know, what are these 4 worth, and then what are these 6 worth? Because if it's,
right,
I can get these 4, and I don't have to give, I don't have to put this out clause in it or whatever, and it's worth X, or these 2 will come along and they're worth X more, and I have to give them an out clause. Maybe it's worth it. Maybe that's the determining factor. Like, they only bring this much, then it's not worth it. If they bring, if it's determined that they would bring this much, it is worth it. But I think it's going to be pretty quiet for the foreseeable future. I don't, maybe foreseeable month or 2, maybe. But I think everybody got this like impression that it was going to be.
Well, it was because of the tweets that happened, like the night that USC and UCLA left.
Right,
Big Ten's not done. Big Ten's not done.
Instant reaction that, because as much as we don't understand it, or maybe we do, but we just don't care. We don't want it to happen. Like, I'm sure those Pac-10, Pac-12 schools want to stick together. Like, they don't want to have to join a new conference.
Right.
But if the money tells them that, like, dude, it's just not like if you're Stanford, and that's the thing, if you're Oregon and Washington, and it comes back that like you're gonna get like $30 million, not only are you taking a hit from your previous contract, the gap is now that much bigger to what you perceive as your competition.
Right.
And we laugh about it. We're like, we've been to the playoff making $7 million a year. Like,
right.
How are you assholes wasting so much money? That's the part that cracks me up, is like the Big Ten and SEC are going to sign these new deals, and these schools are going to get $100 million a year. And somebody's still going 2-10 and firing their coach after 2 years. Like, what are you guys doing?
Right.
But I mean, that's where it becomes a problem, is we're making less, and now the gap is even wider. Where maybe in Oregon and Washington go like, yeah, this isn't our top choice, but this ship over here is dying, is sinking.
I feel you. I don't like and I know a lot of it is just like residual from watching the reason the Big East fell apart. Was because one side had a different set of rules than the other side, and neither side trusted each other.
I think that, too, though, was a lot more of one side just viewed they just had totally different mindsets of operating, being basketball only, and then football, basketball, small, private, Catholic, Jesuit type schools versus major metropolitan
Syracuse
type universities. Like, I think that drove it more so than just like, different sets of rules. I think they just
had different.
They were just diametrically different. Like football and basketball for a long time kind of kept on a very similar plane of importance and relevance, and then all of a sudden, football just shot up, and so much money was being provided to football, where the small basketball schools were like, this just isn't what we are anymore.
Fair to an extent. I
don't think it's going to happen. I just think it's an interesting thing that's being bandied about.
Yeah. And, I don't know that there's a right or a wrong answer, but like you asked me my opinion on it.
It would be very interesting, like, case study to see, like, if they did it, like, how many years in the, how many years does the how many years in the conference does it make it worthwhile?
Right.
And then once you've hit a certain point, you're like, I don't care if they leave or not. They've already brought the value that we wanted them to bring.
Yeah. All right. Let's catch everybody up to this situation. Last year, and there's your timestamp. I did want to shout out my guys with this timestamp. 513 shirts. Got the BCJ polo. Got the new hat. I had to get a couple more hats because my hats were getting a little raggedy. As you can see, I'm a little rough on the hats. That's what Chad having a hat for a year looks like. That's the difference. So make sure you get the 513 shirts. You can get the quarter zip. We got the polos. We got the hats and all kinds of good stuff. We got koozies, BCJ koozies. You want you one of those. Keep your beverage nice and cold at tailgates.
For sure.
So yeah, I just wanted to throw them in there. A little free spot since I got my hats restocked, black and red, from our guys at 513 shirts. Okay, so a year ago around this time, for the first time, we were invited to be a part of the American Athletic Conference preseason media poll that ranks the teams in order where we think they will finish. And, we don't do anything normal here. So we thought it would be fun to rank the teams that we felt comfortable knowing where they would finish. And then we felt there was a group of teams that were all pretty tightly bunched, that weren't really discernible in terms of who was going to finish where. So we put the names in the hat. We drew the names out of the hat, and that was the poll that we sent in.
I do want to point out, we did get the conference championship correct.
We did.
I was bullish on Houston when not many people were.
You were.
I've really had a good run of it lately since I said that the Bearcats were going to go 12-0 and they went 6-6. Since that point, I'm not keeping track, but I think I've done pretty darn good.
You've been on a much better streak since then.
It must have been.
We lost a little faith in you.
It must have been the pills talking.
We lost a little faith in you with the 12-0 turned 6-6 performance. So let's and anyhow, so what had happened was Dave was listening to Mo Egger with Tony Pike, and Mo talked about the deadline for turning his
well, I think it was last week, and they were talking Bearcats and something, and he said I turned in my my preseason poll yesterday. And I was like, well, guess that means we were one and done.
Yep. I went back and I looked and I searched, and I made sure, because vacation and going on the road for AAU, like there's been a lot going on to where it could have slipped through the cracks and accidentally got moved into the trash file, or it was in my promotional file that comes through, that sometimes the AAC and Big 12 stuff goes in there. I went back and looked. Sometimes I figured, sometimes if I just see Chuck Sullivan in the email, like who sent it, I just automatically send it to trash. I don't care anymore. But I scrolled back through, and Dave, we definitely were not invited back this year, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, if you take your damn preseason poll that seriously, then a couple guys just having fun with who's ranked 4 through 9, is that important to you? Then I don't want to be a part of it.
Right. I didn't want to be a part of it to begin with. That's kind of why we mocked it as we did, because I don't care. I didn't want to be a part of it, as it were.
Hi.
What's Will doing? What's up,
He just
Will?
got home from school.
Hi, Will.
Chad says hi.
All right, we got to get this moving now. I can see Rachel's like, all right, let's go, Dave. So the way we did it last time is we had a couple teams at the top and a couple teams at the bottom that we were comfortable with. Then we put the rest of the names in a hat, and we drew out the prediction of finish for the rest of them. I think we both agree Cincinnati and Houston are going to be really good again.
Yeah, I would have UC. What?
I would have Houston 1, UC 2.
I would have
right
UC 1, Houston 2.
Only reason I say that is looking at it from the start. Houston's got the experience at quarterback. Cincinnati is still figuring out who their quarterback is going to be. For me, that gives Houston a slight edge in what I think is otherwise a pretty tight race between the two.
Oh, yeah. I don't think anyone should be angry if UC is not one. I would be interested to see, just does recent success outweigh roster replacements when it comes to the voting and how all that goes. But
Agreed.
UC, Houston, UC, and then I think UCF is pretty comfortably in the third spot.
I would agree with that.
So that means
at least they should be.
They should be. And then I think we have Navy and Temple in the back 2 spots in some order. I don't really care. They both stink.
Yeah. I'll go Navy ahead of Temple, because Navy, it seems like, always finds a way to be a problem for a couple teams and get wins.
They were 2-10. Temple might have been 2-10. I don't know and don't care.
Right.
So that means that we have a group of 6: Tulane, Tulsa, Memphis, ECU, USF, and SMU that we are going to put in a hat and rank 4 through whatever that is, 9. I've already written these down on paper, so I hope you're not doing that now. I've already done it.
No, I'm documenting.
Okay, so let's see. Number 4 is SMU.
Interesting. Sonny Dykes is gone. Maybe they develop a little toughness in that program.
Maybe
they find a little nasty to them.
They've got a good quarterback returning. They've got a wide receiver returning. I think their losses at receiver are going to be pretty big.
Talent-wise, they're probably the 4th best team.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair. So then let's see here. After SMU, we have the Tulane Green Wave.
Is this the year?
No, because they're replacing their offensive coordinator and their defensive coordinator. Their quarterback's good. Their running back is coming back from, I think he was the majority of the year, the whole year. But I don't live in the Willie Fritz hype train that so many keep alive from his time in the FCS level, and they're whatever. They're 6-6 maybe. Like,
I guess the question with them is number 3 was UCF, Jeff.
mm-hmm.
CFU. Sorry, CFU. I guess the question there is, like, a lot of times what'll happen is the team that everybody is like predicting to do great, right? Or predicting to be like a breakout. It won't happen. And then everybody will jump off that bandwagon. And then that's when they have the breakout.
I mean, the league is not that good. Like, it should have happened by now if it was going to happen.
That's fair. And they, like, their record is, it's not like they've been like 8-4 and like knocking on the door.
No. All right. So to recap, Cincinnati, Houston, UCF, SMU, Tulane. Next, Memphis.
I feel like I don't know crap about Memphis because we haven't seen them since
we haven't played them, and I just don't get the sense that it's the whole continuation of Fuente to what's the guy's name that's at Florida State now?
Cristobal?
No, Florida State. He's at Miami.
Norvell.
Yeah, Norvell. I just feel like there's been a drop in like everything that they're doing.
I mean, they played Houston tough, didn't they, last year?
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, I guess this is probably where. I mean, it's probably where I'd have them if I was doing this realistically, something along those lines. But I wouldn't. Honestly, like, I wouldn't be shocked if they finished in the back half. Like, I'm sneaky bullish on a couple teams that have not been picked yet.
Sneaky bullish.
No,
they lost 31-13 to Houston last year.
Oh, well, so next is...
And they lost to East Carolina, and they lost to UCF, and they lost to Tulsa, and they lost to Temple, and they lost to UTSA. Sorry.
Yeah.
You know what you can't spell without UTSA?
What's that?
Nutsack.
Oh, you can't. Next up is USF. And they are one that I
like their young quarterback.
Well, he's not going to be their quarterback. Hate to break it to you.
Oh, really?
No, they got the Baylor transfer, Gary Bohannon.
I like the young quarterback. I like the freshman kid. I thought he was really good.
But they've got some interesting pieces. They have real nice running back. They gave, offensively, they gave UC a little bit of, at times.
Yeah.
Did some stuff. And it's just their roster was in such bad shape when Jeff Scott took over that I think he's still digging out of it. But I'm not sure where they'll be defensively, but I like a lot of their offensive pieces. And, they're good. They've upped their athlete quotient quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
They've got more dudes now that can compete on the AAC level. And it wouldn't stun me if they pulled a couple surprises and maybe finished more mid-pack than backpack.
Okay.
Tulsa is next.
Man, they relied so much on that offensive line, and that thing's going to be like completely redone, right?
Yeah, I mean they had at least two guys I know that got drafted.
Yeah.
They've got a couple. They're just their best defensive player transferred to Baylor. Jackson player.
UC wanted in on that one bad.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm pretty sure a lot of people wanted in on that.
He just moved. He moved home. He's from Waco, right? Or close to Waco.
I don't know, but I don't know. Philip Montgomery somehow saved his job the year they went, the COVID year when they went to the conference championship. Then they backed up again last year to like 4-8 or something. I just think it's a rough job. They don't have a bunch of money. It's like the smallest enrollment in all of FBS. You almost get in the we can fire him, but like who's taking the job?
Right. What's the answer? Like you can create the problem, but what's the answer to how do you fix it? How do you solve it?
Yeah. So that's kind of where that sits with them, and then ECU would be next. I think this is too low. If it was me, Holt Naylor's back again.
How?
Dude, it's the same thing people probably said about Dez.
I know. It just feels like he got here when Tuberville was like in the middle of his tenure. Feels like Tuberville played Holt Naylor's 3 times.
Yeah, but solid couple of pretty nice running backs. Their defense again, gave UC a couple fits at times in last year's game. I think they're, I would have, again, more towards the middle front than the back end. But, again, all these teams to me are like, can you trust any of these teams to go on the road and win a game in conference?
No. Can you trust any of these teams to go to UCF, Houston, Cincinnati and win a game?
Outside of going to Navy or Temple.
Right.
If ECU goes to UCF or Tulsa goes to Memphis, or who's winning a road game?
Right.
So I don't know how you pick between all those teams. And you can do this probably with any conference, but I just don't.
For the most part, yeah, 4 through 9 is going to be.
I just don't care enough about a poll in July to
that was the whole joke, was we don't care enough about to sit down and really
this team added this transfer, and
who's the transfer? Oh,
they got a new strength and conditioning coach, so that's probably going to help them a lot.
Shit. I'm not doing that for these teams. Maybe in the Big 12 we will.
Yeah.
Well, in the Big 12 we'll have content creators that will actually be available to come on these shows with us and discuss.
Right.
That'll be nice too.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of competent content creators in the American.
So not a lot of these teams aren't drawing a ton of eyeballs.
So when you see the AAC media poll, is it next week, Dave? I don't even know when.
No, their media days aren't until the 28th.
Okay, well, in 2 weeks, 2 weeks from tomorrow, and I'm guessing they're all on Zoom again.
I don't know.
What the BCJ poll would have looked like, we would have had to have fought it out for UC Houston, and I probably would have just acquiesced and made UC 1. Because like I said the other day, like, okay, so preseason, I'm thinking Houston, I'll give the nod to, right? But if they were to play in the American Athletic Conference Championship game, Cincinnati's quarterback now would have a full season of experience. And that changes the equation.
Sure.
Because then the equation becomes, do you trust Luke Fickell or Dana Holgerson? And that's an easy answer.
Yeah.
So
fair.
UC, Houston, UCF, SMU, Tulane, Memphis, USF, Tulsa, ECU. I agree, ECU. I'd probably switch with probably Tulane.
I don't know if I'd move them up that high, but I'm not even looking at it anymore.
That would be 5.
So, yeah, sure, whatever.
And then Navy and Temple, 10 and 11. That's what the BCJ media poll would look like if we were invited to do the media poll for a second season, but we weren't.
Kind of on the same, similar topic, talking AAC. I was at fan council last night, and I know I've signed my life away, but I don't think this counts. We were talking about road games in the Big 12 and ticket allotments and things of that nature. Are we talking about road games this year? People were asking like when they were going to know about their tickets and whatnot. We were just talking tickets in general. And it was brought to our attention that the American Athletic Conference, you hold tickets for the visitor. You're required to basically give them a certain amount, and then they can return what they do not sell, use, whatever.
Right.
Closer to the game. And then you can do with those what you please. We found out that the American Athletic Conference you hold 3,500 tickets for the road team, which is going to be more than the Big 12 has you hold, which I laughed out loud and said, wait a minute, you're honestly telling us that like you have to hold 3,500 tickets for Tulane and Tulsa when they visit here? Like,
Right.
I was like, they don't get 3,500 people at their own game.
Has there ever been an AAC team that brought 3,500 people to a game?
Chad, I think you could add up all the people that they bring every year, and it doesn't equal 3,500.
Right. Like, I think you could probably, I think that's fair. I think because what? Generally 4 road games a year because it's an 8-game schedule. So 4 divided by 3,500, just under 1,000 per school. I can't remember a school that brought like 1,000 people to one of those games.
No.
Maybe if you include like the band, somebody brought their band with them. It's like 200. I still don't think there was 700.
No.
Dumb.
It just made me laugh. I'm like,
I can't wait.
Who comes up with that number from this
Mickey
league?
Mouse operation. And then you're making the home team like scramble to sell those tickets.
You could have sold those as part of a season ticket package, and now you're having to hold them and sell them last minute as a single game ticket.
Stupid. All right. Well, I guess that about wraps things up. I don't have anything else to you.
Do we have any Cruton you want to talk about?
We'll find out Friday, I guess.
Okay.
He hasn't made it public when he's announcing, so I've heard rumblings about Malik Elzy on his birthday on Friday. He has not made that known or public, so I'm guessing that's when it's going to happen. But that's subject to change, I suppose. Anthony Brown, they're still fighting it out, but I don't feel as good as I did a couple days ago about it. No comment.
Markets change.
Sometimes I'm no comment. I'm not even going to make a smart ass comment. I'm just going to let it die on the vine. Yeah.
Don't literally go dying.
It's got me choked up.
Oh man, I know it's tough if they're gonna, if they lose a, slot receiver, could have lots of people choked up.
Right. But no, that's That's about it. Jalen Thompson named a top 5. Cincinnati was in it. We'll see where that one goes.
I think I think there was something about him possibly visiting Ohio State again whenever you're allowed to in the next month.
End of the month. Yeah, end of the month.
There was while we were talking to Wes, a 2023 wing, top 60 player in the country was offered. Did you see it was Akeel Watson?
Yeah,
did you see him on your travels this past week?
No, he's a Nike kid, so I would see him next week at the BCJ. Oof. So yeah, I'll have more on that hopefully when I get down to Augusta.
I think there's a 2024 athlete out of Georgia, Martavius Collins, 6'4", 240, mid to high 4-star that put out his top whatever. You see in everybody else in the SEC and
AC, yeah, the usual suspects.
Yes.
Just the recruiting weight class that Cincinnati's been recruiting him for a long time.
Right. Georgia, Alabama, Miami, Florida. Yeah, UC.
Right. So that's what we do around here. So that's about it for recruiting. I don't have a whole lot.
Yeah.
Things will hopefully. It's crazy though. Like if you get LZ, you're at what, 22?
21, I think.
21 or 22.
I just did a class calculator, and that's the funny part about they went off to this huge jump, and now tons and tons of schools have just gotten more and more commits. Like getting a 4-star top 300 player would only move them from 15th to 14th.
Right.
But that also shows you how good their beginning part of their class was.
Right.
But then also shows you that there still is a huge gap to where, you get a really, really good player, maybe the highest ranked player in your whole class, and it only bumps you up one spot.
Yeah. That's what happens when you get up closer to, the top 15, top 20 is moving up is it's a challenge once you start getting.
You need some big time rated players.
Some top 100 dudes.
Yeah.
Top 50 dudes. Working my whole drive from Fairfield to Southgate of Breeze. Hey, I like doing the afternoon shows. But Dave has a job. So I know it's not a common thing. Dave has a job and a toddler.
Yeah.
Middle of the day is not great timing for Dave.
No.
Based on how the viewership goes for these things, I would do everything in the middle of the afternoon.
I feel like for the same reason that it doesn't work for me, it probably doesn't work for others. They're coming home from, the nighttime stuff. They're coming home. They're doing family stuff. I'm doing these after family stuff and after Will goes to bed. Whereas if we're able to do them more in the afternoon, with so many people working from home or commuting, you just throw that on while you're doing one of those things. And, you're able to carve that out while not, neglecting something else at a different point in time.
I love it too. It would be my preference, but we gotta, jobs, and these guys got jobs and families, and nobody wants to just see me sitting here in my room talking to the screen. Nobody wants that, and nobody wants to hear me and Aaron constantly. They already get that enough with the nightcap
and the BBP.
Yeah, well, we get Brent mixed in there.
Right, for sure. But you're also part of that as well on a smaller scale. But
right.
We don't want to oversaturate the market with Chad.
Wes didn't yell at me. He likes to. He's not as good at giving me shit as Fick is. It's just the reality of it. But I come back at both of them.
Well, yeah.
I'm not standing down. They don't pay my paychecks.
But
come at me, that's fine.
Yeah, but if you piss them off too much, then you don't have any info for the people that do pay.
Well, I don't come at them that hard. It's easy, Dave. All right. But again, huge thanks to Wes for coming on. That was awesome. Got him for almost an hour. And you should be caught up if you have any questions about where
Yeah,
they're
no,
at this
the
summer.
basketball board, every thread, every comment should just be a direct link
Like
to
go
this
watch
podcast.
Go watch the hour. Go watch Wes. And you'll get your answers. He's gonna send it out when people can I get a roster rundown? Here you go.
I hope so. Maybe that'll drive some traffic for us. Maybe
All right, that's gonna wrap it up. Thanks to Aaron Smith, the best producer in the city. And thanks to Dave Simone. And thanks to Wes Miller.
I can't get like a best co-host in the city.
No, you're conference realignment expert, Dave Simone.
It's true. I am.
So, I mean, I don't want to give you too many titles.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah.
One at a time. Once
Well,
conference realignment dies down, we'll move that title.
Can one man carry on his shoulders the weight of being conference realignment expert and best co-host in the city? I don't know. I mean, they're pretty broad, but I'm not sure they're that broad.
Well, I mean, who are the other co-hosts in the city?
I don't know.
Jay,
Eddie and Tracy,
Eddie and Rocky.
Rocky, yeah. Nobody really has they're like the only like true.
But I mean, like, there's got to be some podcasts with co-hosts in the city.
Oh, I don't know. Sure.
Paul and Jay.
Paul and
Hear that
Jay.
podcast
Yeah.
growling.
Mm-hmm. Always on my list. Every day it's updated.
Nick Kirby likes Xavier, so I take you over him. He's a Reds guy.
I don't know who that person is.
He's a Reds guy. He's a big Xavier guy too. So
Probably
I'll take you over him every day of the week. We were arguing last night during the PTP, me and Nick Kirby, a little bit.
I'm sorry.
Jeff and Steven for Locked On Reds. Jeff FFF. There's like you don't have enough F's in there for Jeff. Jeff FFF car. Yeah. Okay. Fine. You're the best co-host in the city, Dave.
I've made it.
And now we hurt Brent's feelings.
Oh yeah. Here comes the 750 word article defending. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. All right, let's get out of here. He's Dave Simone. I'm Chad Brendel. He's Aaron Smith. Thanks to Wes Miller. We'll see you next time. It's the BCJ podcast, brought to you by the Holy Grail, right here on BearcatJournal.com.